SaharaTV, you're welcome. The World Football Governing Body, FIFA, has been rocked by a scandal of monolithic dimensions. FIFA President Sepp Blatter last week stepped down after having fought a hard-fought election and actually winning. The scandal seems to be catching up with a lot more people than most of us thought. Last week we spoke with Ifeanyi Okpara, a seasoned sports analyst, and we're catching up with him again this week to bring us up to speed with what's happening with the FIFA scandal. You're welcome to SaharaTV. Ifeanyi.
How are you doing, Kwesi? What's up?
I'm awesome, Ifeanyi. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good to see you again.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
Okay, so what's the latest?
What is the latest? You know, the last time we spoke, when we spoke last week, the elections held, Blatter won, and 72 hours after the election, he came out and he resigned, and that was about the biggest news about FIFA over the week. Then we also had a couple of people coming. I mean, Jack Warner, for instance, coming out and telling the world that he has a lot of dirt. You know, he was going to let it out. He was going to throw a lot of people under the bus. And we had a couple of, like the Irish FA, they came out and said that FIFA actually paid them $5 million not to take them to court over the non-qualification to the World Cup because of what happened in the match when Thierry Henry handled the ball, and it wasn't seen by the referee, and that allowed France to qualify over them. We did have some other allegations here and there. You know, the Chuck Blazer was the details of what Chuck Blazer told the FBI came out. We understood that he was an undercover agent for the FBI. He went into a couple of meetings, FIFA meetings, wired up, and so they have recordings, and he came out and said that he collected bribes for the 1998 World Cup and the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. The officials in South Africa they've come out to defend themselves, saying that yes, indeed, $10 million was paid, but it was paid to the CONCACAF Federation for football development, although there's a lot of cloud hanging over that because it's not something that was disclosed. So, you know, like we talked the last time, the corruption culture is very much in there. Blatter is going to resign. The talk now is about who's going to replace Blatter. We have a couple of, although no one has come out to say they're going to contest, but we do have a couple of people we believe that will be contested, and these are people from Michel Platini, Prince Ali, of the guy that contested the election with Blatter, the just concluded election with Blatter. So a lot has gone on, and we wait to see what will happen. The investigations are still going on. The officials that were arrested the last time, they're still arrested. Some of them are going to take a plea bargain. I think what the Department of Justice is trying to do is trying to, you know, work out like a plea bargain where they you know, give out more information in exchange for maybe lesser charges, or maybe they totally will be left out of the hook.
I see.
Very interesting what's going on right now.
So let's take a closer look at the South Africa issue. They virtually admitted that they actually did pay out some money, even though they're trying to make it sound like it was not a bribe. Does it make sense what they are saying, though? There is the whole African continent. FIFA is putting a lot of money into developing the game in Africa. What sense does it make for South Africa to take money out of Africa and put it into the development of the game somewhere else? Does that add up for you?
And, you know, the name they called it was kind of like, I mean, you wouldn't understand. I mean, let's be honest here. It was a bribe. But then again, you have to ask yourself this question: why did they pay the bribe? They paid that bribe, in my opinion, they paid the bribe because they had to. It is a culture in FIFA. If you don't pay that bribe, you don't get the rights. It's basically the way it works. Egypt has come up, the FA chairman in Egypt also came out and said that Jack Warner told them that for them to get his vote, they needed to pay $5 million, and they refused. So I think when it comes to the bidding for the World Cup, I think it's the highest bribe payer that eventually takes the day. Yes, South Africa, they have to come out to defend what they've done. It doesn't make any sense. It was a bribe, but then again, how much blame can you put on the South Africans?
Exactly. So on that score, Ifeanyi, let me ask you. Some are arguing that Blatter did a lot for African football. Yes. Some I've actually heard people saying, "Oh, all those bribes he may have taken, he used some of it to grow the game on the continent." How much do we fault him as Africans?
You know, I would say this. It is true that there's been a lot of development in Africa. When you take into consideration the goal project, the FIFA goal project, a lot of infrastructures are being built to develop football in the grassroots. When you take the hosting rights to FIFA events, the Under-17 World Cup was held in Nigeria and Egypt, the Under-20 World Cup, and as well the World Cup the 2010 World Cup that was played in South Africa. When you talk about the increase in the number of participating African nations team in the World Cup, yes, indeed, Blatter has helped in the development of football in Africa. But then again, I would say you really wouldn't consider it as fair because there is corruption, there is money laundering, there is racketeering, there is bribery going on, and you can't condone that, regardless of even if you know it helped African countries. And then again, you have to equally ask yourself this question. Giving money to the African FAs, it's not all the money that went into the development of football in Africa. Blatter is a politician. He knows how these things work. Some of the money went into the pockets of the people, officials in the FA, and Blatter knows this. And it's another way for Blatter to hold on to power, because if he treats them nicely, if he gives them this money, they're comfortable with him, and they will always want him there to help defend their interest, whatever that interest will be.
Okay, Ifeanyi, let's backtrack a bit and go to Blatter and why he resigned. First of all, what reasons did he assign for resigning, and then what do you think is the main reason, the real reason why he resigned?
Well, he said he enjoys the backing of confederations from around the world. He does enjoy that backing, and that is why he won the elections. However, he doesn't enjoy the backing of players and supporters of the game, and that is why he's resigning. He did acknowledge or admit that there has to be reforms in FIFA, and he said he would help to bring about those reforms. And that is why he told us, that's an official reason, the official statement he gave into the reason why he's resigning. However, I think two things must have happened here. I think something, maybe in terms of the investigation by the FBI, the U.S. Department of Justice, I think something must have been, he must have been told, you know, something, whatever that is, we wouldn't know.
Do you think he's been offered a plea bargain?
Probably a plea bargain, probably a warning, right? And the second reason I would say is probably he wanted to, you know, win the election at first. He already had this plan in motion. He wanted to win the election, and so that he could come out a couple of days later and tell the world that he's resigning, so that he could leave gracefully. Those are the two reasons, but another reason that has been put out there is a couple of sponsors have written to him. Like I heard Coca-Cola wrote a strongly worded letter to him insisting that you know, there has to be change. He has to step down, and those are the reasons. But for me, I would think you know, it should be like a plea bargain. I think the FBI have something on him, and he came into an agreement. That's my opinion, though.
I see. Now let me ask you briefly before I ask you the main question. This is just a sub question I want to ask you, Ifeanyi, and treat it as such. You think FIFA is too powerful? FIFA is a body which virtually dictates to the government. I mean, governments worldwide, how to control the game. They would say, yes, fund the game, but you don't have a say, for instance, in who heads the FA and all of that.
Yeah.
How you think FIFA is too powerful? Is it time to perhaps clip the wings of FIFA and bring it in line?
Extremely powerful, very, very powerful. You know, like you gave an example. You take a country like a lot of African countries that are being funded by the governments. But then again, FIFA will tell them that the government doesn't have a say into how the game is run in that country. And if the government intervenes, they don't do nothing. I mean, if the government intervenes, they sanction. Sometimes they go as far as banning the country from participating in their competition. FIFA is immune from any kind of prosecution. They've not been investigated in any shape or form. And I'll give you another example. There was a committee that was set up, and it was headed up by Michael Garcia, and they did the investigation into the corruption of FIFA. Michael Garcia came out with a report, submitted it to FIFA, and what they did is that they refused to make that paper make it public. And they told us the investigation, they refused to make it public. And they told the world that, it's a family problem and they were going to resolve it in-house. And it is a shame. And this is an organization that tells us that they're non-profits. But then again, they have a coffer of billions of dollars. And no one checks them. No one investigates them. We've never heard of any official being prosecuted in any shape or form. They have absolute power. When Blatter travels around the world, he's treated like a world leader. And, like you say, power corrupts. And they've been corrupted over there.
You think FIFA can get through this crisis before the next World Cup?
If they get the right person to come in there and reform and restructure the place, yes. You see, one amusing thing about all this problem is it hasn't affected the game. The game still goes on. In fact, the Women's World Cup is going to be starting today. The Under-20 World Cup is already being played. And fans from all over the world are watching and enjoying the game. I mean, the Champions League as well is also being played today, the Champions League finals. And fans enjoy the game. They still go watch the game. Sponsors understand the power of the game. And regardless of what's going on in FIFA, they still come in to sponsor the game. However, it's on the administrative side, which is FIFA. And I also have to say the confederations, I mean the federations, the confederations, and the federations itself. Those are where the problems are. The administrative side of the game is where the major problem is. But there is a danger of this problem spilling into the game, because if this continues, you can take a situation where they always get away with it, and get away with this. It will get to a point whereby it infiltrates the game on the field. You could have a situation you have a situation where games are called, games are
fixed and all of that. My time is up, Ifeanyi, but before we go, I have one last question for you. How is this going to affect African football? How is Blatter's stepping down going to affect African football? And then within the 1.5 minutes that I have left, you can also throw in, if you can, do you think people care at all? The average fan going to watch the games, do they care if Blatter is corrupt? I mean, the African fan.
Well, a lot of the African fans that have been interviewed really don't care. They're enjoying the benefit. They feel that Blatter has been good to them, so they really don't. Like I said, fans from all over the world, not just Africa. What they care about is the game, what happens on the pitch. They really don't care about what happens administratively. Now, how it will affect African football, it depends on who the next person that will be coming in is. Like I said, Africans are very, very unsure. They really don't trust anyone coming from UEFA, and UEFA haven't done themselves any good with the kind of statements they've been making in the past about, you know, other confederations, including the African nations. So, like I said, it would depend on who comes in there. I think the African nations, the Confederation of African Football, they have huge powers in terms of the voting bloc, and they will vote in anyone that would defend their interests.
Thank you so much, Ifeanyi Okpara. You always bring such sunshine to this particular topic anytime we bring it up. Thank you so much. And we definitely will be following up with you, remember. So get abreast with the facts, and very soon we'll be knocking on your doors again.
Not a problem, Kwesi. Nice being here. Nice talking to you.
Thank you so much. SaharaTV, stay tuned. There's more coming.